Gerard, a little bit of extra time here. So let's have a look at some of those questions that didn't kind of make it through the first round. So I have a question here. If I have 3 trucks independent, and if I want to connect them all, how do I? Everybody must be antennaed or set up for PTP signal with fiber. Can you help me?
So yeah, that's a great question. And sorry, I butted in.
Yeah, I'm going to say here, you know, the best master lock algorithm, you know, is here for a reason. And you know, it's not just something that's done once when we switch everything on and then it's set in stone, is it? It's running all the time. So should somebody who is a better grandmaster become available, you know, the system will switch over. And basically you can widen your system, you know, to include, you know, as many or as little devices, you know, to take on that role, can't you?
Yeah. So I mean, it's a fascinating question because the question kind of, there are many different ways of thinking of answering it. Are we talking about 3 trucks from the same organization? Are we talking about 3 trucks from different organizations? Are we talking about the compound where there are 100 trucks and we all want, you know, ideally we want them synchronized, but maybe they're underground, maybe there's no GPS, blah, blah, blah. But it's a great question, right? So, and it isn't just constrained to the PTP question, because those guys, they want to share PTP probably, but they also want to be able to deliver their content. Maybe, you know, if we're talking about a truck docking to a facility, you probably want that truck to be locked to the same PTP as the facility, and you probably want to be able to connect that truck to the facility. So there's a few, I think we're going to end up with some recommendations for kind of connectivity that is outbound facing on an OB truck. In fact, there is a white paper on the Arista website that kind of covers part of what I'm about to talk about. So the IP part of it, we can achieve, you know, if you want to dock a couple of devices together, you're going to end up having to have IP addresses that match if you're using some sort of IP scheme which requires routing between known IP addresses. But there is technologies. IP unnumbered is a technology that allows you to not have to know who the IP addresses are at the other end. You can borrow an address and you can peer with the thing at the other end. That's described in this white paper I mentioned. We can put a link to that in whatever this amazing recording turns into, Kevin. But to kind of address the PTP question, the biggest complexity is probably you bring 3 trucks together and they're on different domains. And so they're never going to talk to each other, right? And that's kind of where this idea of per port PTP domain management comes in. So if you bring 3 trucks together and you connect them all to like a facilities PTP distribution switch, what you could have is that you configure that switch for the OB truck. You don't have to go and configure every single OB truck, because if you configure every single OB truck, you're now having to configure all the cameras and everything else that needs, you know, all the replay devices, all the monitors, everything now needs to be reconfigured. So this idea of bringing stuff together, but being able to, you know, share a PTP master, probably from the facility, and then to be able to deliver whichever domain that device wants. I think that's going to be really powerful. It starts to add a lot of, you know, taking a lot of complexity out of having to reconfigure the switch in a OB truck. So yeah, I think there's ways we can help with that.
Yeah, I mean, they've, as we know, especially with the addition of like HDR and different transfer characteristics, these guys have got enough things to set up and configure, you know, before the red light comes on. And, you know, that 3 o'clock kickoff on a Saturday afternoon doesn't change.
No.
If you're ready, you're recording. And obviously, you know, the whole timing piece of it is absolutely critical, especially when, you know, there are multiple trucks from different vendors providing different services, but somebody's cutting between these feeds. It has to work.
Yeah, and probably all that really needs to happen is that the truck isn't defined to have a priority one of, or the truck's GM and the truck's truck switches are not defined with a priority one of one. So that you can always squeeze another a higher priority in there at the device that's aggregating all these devices, and is the device that's doing the natting of, I call it natting, but the per port PTP domain changes. So I think it requires a little bit of pre-thought. Don't make your truck 1, make it 10, and then you can override. You can probably override that with a local facility PTP fairly easily. Yeah.